running, both you living worlds apart. Spark now, lost in limbo, remembering what you said though. And I asked you if we'd make it far. That one last kiss that they write about, my one last wish you could never doubt. Trust angels who fly away from you, and you've told me that we'd never die. Gave me so many reasons why we were meant to be. Then she said no, 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 no. No, 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 you should. I've earned cost and now I've paid it. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, please don't go. Face memory erasing. Been a few years since I heard your voice, yeah. Lost a few here, but it's not by choice, no. Girl, I see your face every day when I look through my phone. Can't delete all these memories, won't leave me alone. Hit my blind side, never saw it coming. You were so wild, but no, I was nothing. And I'm nothing now, nothing's changed. You know I'm just the same. Miss you now, but I hope that someday you explain. Our one last kiss at the right about. My one last wish you could never do. Well, that about concludes Silence Scene reading. I hope that you were able to read a book just like I was. Got a little hot in here, but I sorted it out in the end. So what I want to actually talk about, and the whole purpose of this video was not for me to just stand here and take off a bunch of clothes and act like a fool, but rather I wanted to talk about a serious kind of state of comic books. And what actually brought me to it was the end of this book, where the author addresses Big Two versus basically like Marvel and DC versus like the independent comic book market, and how as DC and Marvel kept going, they favored it became like a monetary thing where they wanted to get people to, I mean, it even says like have somebody who sells 80K issues of a single comic. Why can't they just pay somebody less and still have them sell 76,000 comics? So I think that as those kind of like basically it perpetuated itself. You had writer turnover, you had artist turnover. Once somebody got popular, they cost too much. So it led to stagnation. And then that stagnation, because they were so big, they were still selling a bunch of books, so they had to take less chances. And what got rewarded was things that didn't offend people. And then the storylines started getting stale and more just repetitive in the sense, because nobody died, nobody there's no real consequences. And it destroyed, like by their success they destroyed themselves. And you can see it kind of going around that like people want something new, something fresh. But then the newness and the freshness were kind of taken back by how big it was. Like the nostalgia factor was actually left behind, and like people were like, well, I'm comfortable with this story. I'm fine with this being the way that it is. And it kind of created this necessity for something new, something that is like a complete storytelling. And Independence kind of filled that void. Not only did they have miniseries where the story ends, you tell a full story, but they also had fresh ideas, fresh takes. They weren't forced basically to do stereotypical things. They weren't forced to walk a fine line. You can offend somebody in an independent comic book because it's what you decide to write. I mean, they play into stereotypes. Like they embrace the stereotypes and create amazing things. And I'm not saying that the independent comic book market hasn't done that the whole time. I'm saying that it's the best it's ever been right now. And as you can see, you'll notice it in your pool box too. You start getting less Marvel, you start getting less DC, and you start getting these creative titles that you've heard of. And it's fascinating. I'm just excited for the independent comic book market. It's the whole reason that I got into, like, all I read are independent books, and it's refreshing. The art, you can see that the chains are just taken off, and they could create these fantastical things. I have somebody backstage, and I'm gonna add you to the stream, man. So first off, do you have any? Are you kind of listening to what I was kind of ranting about? Here, we'll do that. There we go. Because basically, what I was trying to say is, as the independent market grows, but don't get me wrong, I genuinely think that
people who wrote stories and used the pandemic properly, used their time wisely, they not only took certain liberties, they were just the realest stories came out towards like in the past year, because I feel like just people had to sit at home. And what do? I mean, we all just sat at home and soul searched. We got organized. We did just as much as we possibly can, and it was fascinating to see that kind of development. Now I'm not sure if I'm talking over you or if you're not saying anything. But I'm gonna keep rambling because I'd actually like to. I'd actually like to put a shirt back on, but I think I've missed that point. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is the independent comic book market created fresh storytelling, fresh art. It's so saturated though. The variant okay, between the variants, the excess of the variants, and the intensity of how many books release each week, it's overwhelming to the reader because you can't keep up. I mean, the whole reason that I did this was my attention span is everywhere, right? So I go on live and I sit here in silence and I read a book and I do something ridiculous and I take a step back and I realize that people have lives and they don't necessarily have time to read all the books. I have stacks and stacks of books, of either books that were recommended to me or just going forward. I just find it so fascinating. What's up, man?
Yeah, how's it going?
Oh,
Yeah,
so it is
on that point, I can.
This is on me. Okay, so I've been talking over a relaxing. Okay, hold on. I gotta keep talking. I'm gonna. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I gotta figure out.
Oh no! Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I actually didn't expect anybody to come in, to be honest. So
I just woke up and this is the first thing I saw, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just stop on here.
There we go. Okay, I had the wrong mic setting. Hey, relaxing. Have I been talking over you the whole time?
No, I've just been listening. I tried to plug in my headphones, but I don't think the mic works on these.
Literally both times that I've had you on the stream, I've not checked my, because like I said, I didn't expect anybody to actually come in. So I've had my mic set up to my Bluetooth headset up here, and I'm sitting here just like I'm watching Drac talk, and I'm not hearing anything, but I can hear everybody now. So what's up, Drac? What do you have to say about what I brought up? And if you do feel uncomfortable, I can put a shirt back on.
Oh no, it's all good with me, man. Okay, I just woke up. I went to bed around 7 in the morning. I pulled an all-nighter. It was great.
Jeez. Okay.
How do you like my blown out background? I just opened my computer and the sun is shining, and
that looks.
I'm okay with it.
You're whitewashed, and it doesn't even matter because
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me right now, man.
I wanted to talk a little bit. Go ahead.
What you were just saying about. I mean, but that's my situation always is, there's so much, I myself am way behind on reading.
Yep.
Because, there's, in the biggest, one of the biggest issues I've had with collecting since I started collecting again was trying to figure out, exactly what I wanted to, first just collect just as something I wanted to just have, or something I maybe thought, well, maybe this would be worth something down the road, and then stuff I wanted to read. And for the most part, it's all stuff I want to read to some degree or another, but that shit just piles up because every week there's like a new title, or and then there's there's titles that there's very few titles I think I've been buying that are like I said in the comments, most of what I get is indies.
Yep.
Almost all indies. There's very few titles in there that are really like ongoing series. I find that like a huge portion of what I've been buying have been like limited or mini series, which is great because even if I don't get to reading it right away, by the time I get to reading it, I've got them all, which is
Yeah.
great because that's
Yep.
how I'm used to reading. Because for like 20 years, I was just buying trades, and
Yep.
so I'm used to binging everything and reading it, and that's typically how I read. Is I will not. It's rare for me to pick up a book and read it that day. There's very
Yeah.
few
Oh,
books
yeah.
I've done that with. I've done it with Nice House on the Lake because
Okay.
that's just been amazing. I although I'm still one issue behind on that. Though generally speaking, I will stack up a few issues before I even start reading it.
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm doing what you did. I'm just
Yeah.
picking up trade paperbacks now. I'll buy an issue
Mhm.
1 to dip my toe
Yeah.
into the book,
Yeah.
see if I like the art, see if I like the writing, see if it's actually like something that I'd be into. And if I am, I wait around for the trade. And I
Mhm.
just I have the privilege of my comic book shop. They'll put out a reader copy,
Yeah.
and I'll just stand in the shop and read and keep up, and then wait for the trade to come out.
Yeah.
And then I'll have my collected thing, and I can read it all at once because it's so hard. Because I'm glad that you brought up A Nice House on the Lake. I mean, to me, that's as indie as a DC book will ever get.
Yep.
And it's going to go on a break because
And now
Tinian
that Vertigo's
decided,
gone, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and Tinian's going to shift towards focusing on Substack a little bit more, and we're going to have a break after issue 6, and that's halfway through the series. It's supposed to be 1 of 12,
Mhm.
and we just have to sit around and wait for that. So where does that leave the reader? I mean, The Last Ronin took forever to come out, and you just sit reading 2 issues or 3 issues of the story, and you wait for 3 months.
Yeah, that was
It's
like what, a year for 4 issues, something
Yep.
like that. Yeah.
Yep. And
Hmm.
it's so hard. You can't put that on the reader. And
Mhm.
I wish that there was and I'm not trying to be a downer. What I'm trying to say is that we can sit here and complain, or we can fix the problem. And I think the best way to do that is to make a decision on whether you got to separate the digital readers and who's going to be buying digital, who's going to be a true have to have a hard copy. I mean,
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot of talk about that, especially with Substack coming out. And there's just so much. I think the market is oversaturated, and it's hard because I started with art. Like I
Mhm.
started collecting art, and then I get into Funko Pops, and then I get into comics. And right when I got into comics, I saw all these variant covers, and they're all just amazing art. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is so cool. But then I sit there and I think, I'm buying like 5 copies of like the same comic book, and
Yeah.
the interior is the exact same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why can't I just reach out to the artist and say, hey, do you have a print for this?
Mhm.
Because that's all I'm really fascinated in
Yeah.
is the cover.
Yeah.
And I don't get the desirability of it. And then you also touched upon, you pick up something because you think it's going to be it's going to be worth something someday.
Mhm.
If it's not
Possibly.
worth something someday, it could be just worth something to you.
Yeah.
And that's what collecting is in general.
Mhm.
And usually people have good taste, so you collect something and it goes up in price. It's literally like that's how I've found things kind of work in that
Yeah.
aspect.
Well, that's why typically, like you were saying, you'll pick up a first issue and then maybe read the trade if you liked it. And for me too, especially with all the indie stuff,
Yeah.
I'll pick up the first issue. I may not pick up the second or third, but if just in case, it becomes the next Something Is Killing the Children, I've at least got that first issue.
Yep,
Because
and
you
that's how
never
I
know.
feel. I have the first issue of These Savage Shores. I have the
Mhm.
first issue of Shadow Service, and then I just go straight to trade.
Yeah.
because it becomes like and we have an artist that jumped in the chat as well. I am toning back on variant covers. I don't feel the need to do that because once we get once you start talking to artists, they love commissions. Like I commission artists all the time, and I get like new rare original stuff. I mean, it's and the fact that I can like be a part of that process is phenomenal. But I literally did this video because have you read Frontiersman?
I have not.
Okay. Well, in the back, he writes about. Can you give me 2 minutes? I just want to read this. Okay. Frontiersman is a result of our shared enthusiasm and blah, 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 a love letter, yada, yada. Look, you know the deal. You've read the spiel in other books. I'll spare you. Instead, I want to get into what's different about this series. But first, let's talk about the lay of the land. The creators who pioneered American comic book format had prose and movie serials as their influences. Later, a new generation of creators raised on comics took the reins. There was a meta quality to the work, which proved a perfect fit for the complex interwoven narratives of Marvel and DC. I'm like nodding my head at this point. I'm like, yeah, preach, man. If the fans expected continuity, it didn't hurt to have the creators who knew every corner of it, which is awesome. So they got these creators, they knew every backstory, and they were kind of catering to the fans. Opinions vary on how it all aged, and that's this. He's talking about like the nostalgia for like Bronze and Silver and Golden Age, like the early comic books. That's what this is kind of saying. Opinions vary on how it all aged. I tend to think that while not every book over the past 60 years has been a creative success, that's fair, the grand experiment of it all has been interesting. But around the time of the second Image boom in the early 2010s, I began to wonder if this inward-looking approach was long for the world. When a publisher experiences brain drain and there's no other way to characterize what happened to Marvel at that time, all you're left with is continuity, and it's not pretty. The big two characters have such devoted fan bases that it becomes a game of intellectual property Moneyball. And you see that like the fights over Sony and Marvel for Spider-Man. I mean, you literally see all that. If Creator X sells 80,000 copies of Batman, but their page rate is at the highest tier, then an astute bean counter will ask, why not get the guy who sells 76,000 copies but will work for peanuts? And so begins the race to the bottom. And it's not, and not to sound conspiratorial, which he does, by the way, but it's often around that time that the fans turn on creators. They've seemed to reach the top of a mountain, and maybe rightly, there's a thirst to see something else. So often the next step in the cycle is to string a company, a string of company men produce scared pablum that doesn't offend anyone or excite anyone. So they're running scared and saying like, let's just produce something that's middle of the road, doesn't ruffle any feathers. And there's always some faction of decision makers at these publishers who see low impact material as good stewardship. But mediocrity is gangrenous. Ignore the symptoms at your own peril. Strip clever and innovative from the equation, and all you're left with is just framework. All lattice, no vine. And now even the lattice is in disrepair. Continuity has been tossed. So what remains? How many times can they replace the axe handle and the blade before we acknowledge that it's not the same thing anymore? So here's the options as I see them. Complain pointlessly or do something. I think enough people have got the former covered because it's so easy to complain, and I totally agree with him. So Frontiersman team is attempting the latter. And that's what he like. That's intense.
Excellent. Yeah.
I love what he talked about.
I couldn't agree more with that. And what that really reminds me of, a couple points there. Speaking of, let's do something that's not offensive, but will essentially sell a ton of books.
Correct.
And is essentially middle of the road. Is all of the big two are kind of really addicted to these wide crossover events, and
Yes.
they'll have not just, it used to maybe just be one a year, and now it's multiple a year. Think of like most recently, of course, would be like King in Black or Empire, things like
Yep.
that.
Yep,
These
absolutely.
Future State, and these are things that they do not for any creative reasons, but because they know those will sell books, and those will help sell maybe some books for titles that are not doing so well, because you throw them
Absolutely.
into the mix. Well, we can sell some Robin books now, or whatever it is.
Yep.
But
The
ultimately,
Hellfire Gala, like
yeah.
everything ties in. Yep.
But creatively, I mean, at the end of the day, no one ever goes, "Oh wow, that's the greatest thing I ever read." Almost never. I can't really think of any huge crossover events where those are like my favorite stories ever. When I was a kid, I loved Maximum Carnage, but
Oh heck yeah.
aside from that, I can't really think of any that I'm particularly a big fan of. I mean, I guess Civil War. What came out of that was interesting, but ultimately, you're also the problem I have with those. It's not that I have a problem with them; it's just that too much all at once. You know what I mean? Like you can
Yep.
you don't have to do one every 3 months. You know what I mean? I think the fewer that you have, the more important they become, and because then essentially we're just messing with the continuity, which I think you also mentioned. You're really just, and ultimately you're throwing wrenches into the gears of the writers who are working on those titles and those characters, who may have had plans for one particular character, but then the editors tell them, well, you can't do that because you're going to now be part of this huge event for the next 6 months. So forget all your plans.
Yep. And that's what's I'm reading Nightwing. Like I said, I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I say that I only read in indie, but I'm reading Nightwing, and I didn't pick up the most recent issue because it's a forced Fear State tie-in. Yeah. And I'm just not into it. And then the Catwoman, I only picked it up because of the covers. But at the same time, like there's still a chance for creativity to kind of flourish, because there's so many new writers, there's so many new artists, and people are giving them a shot, especially at these indie levels. There are companies out there like Second Sight Publishing who are accepting open submissions, which Ryan, like, hit them up. They are accepting open submissions. With all the information we have, I've done the math on what DC was paying Tinian for writing an issue of Batman. $1,600 an issue for a book that will make tens of thousands per issue.
That's
wow.
Wow.
With the Substack deal, he makes roughly $38,000 per issue, and he keeps all the rights. It's a no-brainer. I totally agree.
Comic creators are historically always notoriously underpaid. Always have been, always will be.
I'm paying my artist hourly for the comic book that I'm creating, and she was over the moon. She's like, heck yeah, because I'm instilling the enthusiasm to going forward. I have no problem paying her $5,000 to make my comic book. Like that's just what it's going to come down to. And if Ryan is telling me that I'm paying her more than Tinian, then I don't care, because I'm offering somebody who is new and who is not in the industry a shot, and they're not being taken advantage of. So I imagine that particular artist will stay with me, because like there isn't another lucrative contract out there, because everybody's just about the bottom dollar.
I mean, I can't believe that they're paying someone like him like peanuts. Maybe they're just like, oh, dude, it's okay. You know what? You're writing like
you have
four other titles this month. You'll be okay.
And that's why he's probably forced to keep Something Is Killing the Children going, because he didn't initially think that was supposed to be as long as it is. And now they're kind of forcing more content out of him. So you can't get mad at the creator for thinking about themselves and pursuing creative content, especially if they get to create the creative, or they get to keep all the rights for it. One more thing from Ryan. I don't see the Substack thing working out long term for the creators, to be honest. That's fair. But I do think what it means for creators' rights and ripples are going to pay dividends. So
long term it's questionable, especially because of the subscription model, where typically you're going to get a lot of subscribers initially in the beginning But what happens second and third year? Those numbers drop almost across the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've talked on other podcasts about it. I think Substack is a great idea. However, once the money dries up, their business model isn't sustainable because they're paying these creators just like they have a big a fund that was created. And once that fund depletes and the revenue doesn't replace that, because as a comic community, I think we're rather timid for something to change. And that's why you have there's a whole line called True Believers. Like we have the nostalgia. We're not that good at shifting things. And there's a reason why the comic book market is, I love what it did. I love how many people and how it crosses multimedia and the amount of people that get brought into comics. Like it can be a movie that they see and they go, that was awesome. And then they get more story out of it. And I'm just afraid that the big two are alienating their fans. And I see it at Disney. The first convention I ever went to was D23. It was the all Disney convention.
Yeah.
And I literally saw it firsthand how they were cash grabbing. They're just trying to pick at the nostalgia factor, but they're leaving behind the fans. And I think that we're a little too smart and we're going to know and see through that. Boom. How hard they screwed his storytelling. They chopped up Win in a weird way. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I didn't realize it was supposed to be 5 issues. Yeah, it definitely is. It feels like it's been dragged out. But
Wind was supposed to be 3 graphic novels.
Okay.
That's it. That's all it was supposed to be. They just finished up issue 10, which I actually have right here, ironically. And it's great storytelling, but I'm buying the graphic novels. I'm just sticking with that. Like the first one came out, I picked it up, and that's the ones that I read. So I'll sit here and I'll read how it should be, or how it was initially designed. And same with Something Is Killing the Children.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a 5-issue miniseries, and I've literally put Something Is Killing the Children on my least favorite comic list because I hate what it did to the industry. It's not about the story. It's not about the art and stuff. Granted, I can't relate to it. It's very niche, and that's what a lot of independent books are. Like, my opinion is that a story about unicorns called By the Horns is the best comic out there. And that is and people don't share that same thing, but it's what I like, and it's what I'm going to collect. And it's always refreshing that I can have a story that feels like it was just catered to me. It's there's killing and unicorns and fantasy and moody people and witches and it's awesome. And then you obviously have your moniker with what you like too. And the industry provides the content, and it's awesome, and it separates. I love, everybody talks about it being escapism, right?
Yeah.
Comic books are being transported to a different world. And there have been comic books where I'm standing in my comic shop, and Bunny Mask is actually what it happened with. And I love that you're here because you interviewed Andrea Moody last night.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that because I also don't necessarily, I like so many different things, so I won't really know exactly what I'm gonna like until I read it. And Bunny Mask was for me a huge surprise, a wonderful surprise, because I remember when first issue of Bunny Mask came out, and I saw the cover, and it's just like this girl with this bunny mask, and I was like, I don't know, that looks like it might suck. But then I read it, and I was like, oh, okay, this is not what I thought it was at all. And
I know. I still don't know what's going on, and I made it very clear in your stream. I was like, please just tell us something, because I'm so. But it evoked emotion from me, and I think that's why I respect it.
Yeah.
It has everybody talking. Everybody has a similar aspect. They're like, what's going on? This person's licking wounds and killing people and showing up at random times, and there's this other creature and people can hear it. The snitch is talking to people, and I'm just like, the fact that a book can release 4 issues, complete its first arc,
Mhm.
and leave everybody like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And then get renewed.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
right
is
away. Yeah.
awesome. Yep, that
And
is awesome.
that's what I found. I found going back to Something is Killing the Children, that
Okay.
has not held my attention at all, because and I think that the fact that, like I said, it does feel like they dragged out the story like way longer than it should have been, because I kind of like over reading over, several issues. It's like, okay, this chick is hunting monsters or whatever, and she kills them, and then what else? There wasn't anything really there that I found that intriguing.
Exactly.
Um, and,
You distracted me so much with that because I was like mid rant, and then you post that comment.
Whereas, like in one issue of Bunny Mask, there's just so much going on that
Correct.
makes me want to keep reading it. Something is Killing the Children, issue to issue, did not have that at all.
Answer this, and well, this is going to be a question that I already know the answer to, but tell me what part. Was there a part in Something is Killing the Children where somebody's like, whoa, you have to pick this up, you have to read this? Because with Bunny Mask,
No.
what happened in the first issue? Everybody talked about the bottom of the first page, that last panel.
Very
And it
first
was-
page.
Yep.
Which
And
Scott bought that page. Hoarder's Hide. He
Oh, no
owns
way.
He owns that original page.
I
Yep.
I don't know
Think
how
that
to
he made a
go
video
about
on it.
things.
Yeah, he bought the first page of Bunny Mask. It's excellent.
Jeez.
The
That's
thing
a
that
hot take.
Made you want to buy that book was that really cool bandana. That was it.
Wait, what do you mean the really cool bandana?
And Something's Killing the Children. That's
okay.
The bandana. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think it was hype more than anything for Something is Killing the Children, why I even started to read it. And I only read up to like issue 10 or something so far. I'll probably eventually read the rest, but it's just like there's so many
you're
other things I'd
invested in the
rather
story.
read.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's something that I think is very easily picked up in trade because there's still, and when I first got into comics, I came from the auction community of YouTube where it was like, here's my book, and with my interview with The Rock, I clowned on it so hard because I was bringing
The Rock?
I interviewed A Rock lowercase. When I did that, I was kind of clowning on all the tropes, and even I would sell some books because I decided to make my own comic book, and I'm going to fund it with the selling off my collection. And I would show up to these auctions, and I would. Each round that we'd go through the auction, I'd do a different trope, and I'd kind of poke fun at like what's going on, and it caught me off guard how well accepted it was that I got so far behind with organizing and selling books that I like. First off, I was like, thank you. It was a huge compliment. Like, thank you very much for wanting to purchase the stuff that I have. But I found myself not like reading the books, and I'm just sitting at my comic shop looking on eBay trying to figure out which one's selling for $7 instead of cover price.
Yeah.
And I took a step back, and I'm like, no, I'm going to buy books that I want to read. I'm going to reach out to artists that I want and that I like. And the first interview on my channel was with my favorite book. I reached out to the artist, and I clowned around in that interview too, because like I ran my mouth for 4 minutes. I'm really good at talking. And then I asked him a minor insulting question as the first question. And if I were him, I would have literally just left. I would have been like, I'm out of here, man. But I love that how awesome and accepting this community is.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously not just other collectors and channels and accounts and stuff, but also the creators. The fact that that Andrea Muti was just, I just asked him, do you want to do an interview? He's like, yeah, man, no problem. And all the other creators are interviewed. It's like, I never expected that when I started my channel, I would be even able to do that. I knew I was like, I'd give it a shot, you know, but
Yep.
that was, I think, my 6th interview now. And it was just like,
That's
which
nuts.
gives me really hope for, you know, I've got a list. I got a list of creators I want to talk to. And
yeah. And now you have this kind of, what's it called? You have resume. You have a resume of
Yeah, I
people
suppose
going
so.
It
back.
was a really good get of an interview, and it was a really good interview.
Yeah,
I like watching.
I was digging Drax's outfit too. I agree, relaxing. Like he had a great get up. And your camera was on point too. I'm gonna be picking up a new camera on Sunday. And
Oh, that's actually just that's my phone. I use my phone as my camera.
Really? Okay, cool. Mine
Yeah,
always overheats and kicks me out of things because it's always hot where I live. That was the whole point of what I was doing, was I was taking off a bunch of clothes because it's so hot. What's up, Brian? Okay, and before I say anything, thank you 3 for joining, because this was supposed to be like, I woke up, I came up with this idea. I'm like, I need to read this book and I want to talk about what they said in the background. I did not expect anybody to join. Thank you very much. I love this community, but I'm gonna endlessly parody it. Just understand that it's coming from a loving perspective. Like, I'm wearing a bow tie and duct tape over my.
I'm right with you on that. I'm on the same level, man.
Heck yeah.
I'm always gonna parody it.
Now, Ryan, I love what you were saying in the chat. Like the fact that you did the math on that aspect. Like, I am severely overpaying my artist, and I will not lose sleep over it, because I think it's awesome, and I think that we should support people going forward and give people a shot, because I spent 10 years of my life being rejected from jobs because I didn't have any experience. And the artist that I plucked her out of college, and she's just talented. And I'm like, you're getting a shot. And that's the best that I can do. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, comic book writing reminds me of live music.
Okay.
You know, because like, would you guys write Batman for $1,000 an issue?
No. Well, maybe.
Would I write Batman for $1,000 an issue?
Right now, DC was like, I'll give you $1,000. You got 6 issues. It's a hard thing to turn down as well.
Yeah, I feel like that perpetuates the problem, because somebody will always step up at that lower price, whether it's $1,000 or
just
anything.
add a chance to write, whether it's they really want to write that character or just the exposure, right? Like, you're writing Batman. Like, we're doing you a favor. You should be doing this for free, you know?
Yep.
Well, that's what reminds me of the music thing, is that people will say to you, do you want to open for so-and-so at this club?
Yeah.
We might pay you.
Yeah.
But
that's fair.
Exposure. And artists hate the word exposure, but it is a real currency that Tinian used now to make him a lot more money.
Absolutely.
So it's a weird system.
What were you saying, Ryan?
I was gonna say, like, also the pressure of writing something like Batman, you know, like the audience you're gonna have for that versus how many people are going to complain about everything that you do. Like, you see Tynan, like, he took Batman as a sense of exposure so he could get more attention on his indie work, but he also hated how it changed the internet kind of against him, you know, and suddenly, like, his Twitter feed is just full of mentions of, like, how bad of a writer he is because of Batman, you know? So, like, you got to take that in, too. Like, do you want $1,000 and all the hate that's going to come with that?
Yeah, I was going to say, no offense to anyone who enjoyed it, but the Joker War felt like he was getting paid $1,000 an issue.
I did not care for his Batman stuff.
There we go. I had a we're reading banner going around, and now I need to say we're keeping it real. No, I totally agree, and I think that he was just having fun with it, because he would introduce a new character almost every issue. Miracle Molly, Clown Hunter, what's the Peacemaker or Ghostmaker Punchline? Yep.
And it hasn't been that long, but those characters have lasted surprisingly longer than I thought they would. You know, Miracle Molly's got her own book now, right? Which I thought was a little. I think it's a little premature. Are that many people clamoring for a Miracle Molly book? I don't think so, but
I'm impartial because he was taking shots, right? Some of them are going to land. The DC is invested in Punchline, and the Miracle Molly story was actually really good. Her backstory.
I didn't read that, but
it was really good in the sense of like it wasn't bad. It was a full conclusive story and it was well told. And I think that if that's how we're going to praise DC, I think that that's also a problem. Because if they put out something mediocre and we go, oh, at least it wasn't bad, then and that gets a lot of praise. But at the same time, I'm setting up a cosplay. Like, I'm a contradiction. I'm setting up a cosplay for Clown Hunter. Like, I literally, that character moved me, and his backstory was.
I will say, I thought Clown Hunter is a great character.
Yeah, and he aesthetically he looks really cool, and I was just like super into it. And now he's relegated to a backup story at the end of the books.
Yeah, even like I'll say, I thought he maybe did too many new characters at once, but
absolutely.
But Clown Hunter stood out to me, and I think Punchline grew on me a little bit as well.
Okay.
In that at first it was just like, this is just like a Harley Quinn knockoff, but there's potential there, I suppose, especially going forward with stories involving her and Harley Quinn and the Joker.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's more of like the Harley Quinn replacement in a sense, because of like how the progression of the story happened.
Yeah.
But then she's her own character. And I don't know. I think it's here's something that separates Marvel and DC, the big two, from independent comic books. When I see independent comic books, I'm not looking for first appearances. I'm not looking for a costume change. That's not something that I'm like clamoring over. But then Something is Killing the Children got so big that they're talking about first appearances. And Spawn got so big, and now they're talking about first appearances. First appearance of Gunslinger Spawn. And as things get larger and larger, like Invincible also has first appearances that you talk about, and the deaths of, and the all that kind of aspect. I like independent comic books strictly because I don't have to worry about what's going to be hot and not. I just pick writing and storytelling and art, obviously. Sorry, writing and storytelling, the same thing. And panel layout. I gotta admire that. I mean, there's some innovative layouts in some books, and there are creators that are taking like serious liberties with what they're doing. I got something there.
One thing you left out though, which sometimes can be a good problem to have, is all the covers. Right now you have.
That's true. Right? That's very true. But there are books out there. Here, I can do this real fast. There are books out there that are just beautiful, and they have background pages, and they just envelop, and the colors are just amazing. And it's just wow. It's not just the 9-panel layouts and the grid format, and it's refreshing, I guess, in that aspect.
I'm still listening. I'm just moving outside.
That's fine. The last Batman I was reading is Grant Morrison ran Frank Quietly Run, and I read it because it was quietly. He was outside. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying there, Ignacio.
I really liked what you said about buying art from artists you enjoy instead of just doing cover buys.
Oh yeah, because you got to think that there's prints out there for all of those covers. I don't get why we're buying variant covers when it's the same issue of the comic book inside. Just buy the art.
I have conflicting thoughts on it. If you go to an art fair,
okay,
you're going to buy something like a piece of art at that size for a lot more than maybe
absolutely
you would pay for a cover. So really, it's not that bad of a deal if you're just buying one piece of art that you like, because in the grand scheme of art sales, it's really not that much.
No, not at
I
all.
also like I always picture the main artist kind of somewhere upset that you didn't buy his book if you pick up the one. Like I was the one who was paid to write or draw Spider-Man, and you're
Yeah.
buying his cover. This was supposed to be my year. So like that's
Yes.
frustrating.
That's very true. Yeah. So you have your cover on your book, and yet the variant cover that has 300 copies is selling for $50, and it's not your art, but it's on your book.
It's just kind of rude.
I like it. That's a really good point. But going back to what Drac was saying, we can reach out to these creators and they respond, and they're happy to do interviews, and you get that extra perspective. I mean, that like I could probably reach out to Patrick Kinlan, probably not show him this video where I like strip down while reading his book, but also like I can talk to him about like what his actual thoughts were, because what he said in the back of that book was prophetic, and it was the
Yeah.
reason that I made this video.
Yeah. Who's the writer of that? Frontiers?
Patrick.
Oh, it says it right there.
Kinlan. Oh, sorry.
Actually, I can't read that. Who is it?
Patrick Kinlan.
Oh, okay. Kinlan. Okay. Yeah.
Kindlon.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah, me neither. And they came out of nowewhere. And he's like,
Guess
he
he's a
literally
new
says,
writer.
yep. And the artist is Marco Ferrari. That'll be easy to remember.
I do wonder
but yeah,
how like the retirement program is working for artists, because you see Marvel still throws Claremont work every once in a while. I wonder what he gets paid now.
I have no idea. And there's like funds that are set up for I go to a lot of, well, I used to go to a lot of conventions, and there are artists and writer funds for people who are no longer in the industry, and they just send money to their families. It's that simple. Like there a bunch of people donate money who are fans. I mean, it's nice that, I mean, we all make money elsewhere and buy the content that we like and the collectibles that we like. It doesn't matter what market it is. You if something interests you, it's a form of entertainment. And like if I'm going to spend $50 going to the movies and a comic book costs $5, I'm probably going to pick the comic book because it's a cheaper form of entertainment, even though the prices are going up and there's a bunch of other circumstances. But it's, I don't know. There's a separation between creative content and escapism. And I keep going back to escapism because we spent the past year indoors, and what we had were books to read and media to, I mean, there's countless shows out there that are addressing, oh, did you see the new episode of this? Or, oh, did you pick up the copy of this? And I'm not sure if that's sustainable because I'm not like a sieve. I'm not just going to keep consuming things. I'm going to want to create. I'm going to want to do my own thing. I'm going to burn out in that aspect. And I'm worried that the variants are going to make people burn out. The endless number ones are going to make people burn out. And the constant turnover of artists and creators are going to make people burn out. And I just don't think that it's a sustainable market, but they're succeeding by creating good stuff, but people don't know about it. Like I say By the Horns and people are like, oh, I've never read it. And I go, dude, it's my favorite book. Go check it out. So anytime somebody buys something for me, I just throw in like a By the Horns thing, and because I just want it to be. Yes, it was Ignacio. It was These Savage Shores.
Yeah, I've never read By the Horns. I'm gonna check it out though.
Yeah, please do. It caught me off guard, and it's fantastical art, and I just don't know how to explain it. I need to interview the writer, because you saw, if you watch my channel, you saw that I interviewed the artist. He's a very happy and go-lucky guy, very lighthearted. But when you see the writer, he is like this punk rocker that looks like he's in a biker gang. And he's a Hawaiian guy. He's big. He's he's like, he loves rock music, and like a lot of the insights in the story are give little homages to rock bands, and it's really cool to have like this bubbly art and this rocker mentality writing. Like it's so different, and it caught me so off guard, and that's why I love it. I'm not saying it's the best thing out there. It just it surprised me in the best possible ways. So, and I'm sure everybody has books that they like too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy for us to sit here and nitpick things. Like I could say, like I gave up a book because there's a grammatical error on the first page, and I just threw it on the floor. I'm like, this is stupid. I'm
You
not going to read it.
disgust me.
Yeah, and then I get told by other people, I'm like, well, it wasn't a dialogue thing. So if it was specific dialogue, then it's not technically a grammatical error. It's just how they're portraying them speaking. I'm like, all right. So I picked the book back up, and it was a good book.
Yeah.
But it's easy to give, because there's so much out there. We're inundated with content that if one little thing peeves you, you just jump off of it and you forget it. And it's
There's really only been maybe 1 or 2 books like that for me over the past year, but one immediately I was just like, this is trash, was Marvels. You know, Marvels, Kurt Busiek.
okay. Yeah.
I read the first issue of that and I was like, this is the worst dialogue this man has ever written. I couldn't, I just couldn't. I could barely get through that first issue. The concept was ridiculous. I hate it. It was one of the few comics I've read, and I'm just like, at the end, I'm like, I hate this. I absolutely hate this. I'm not reading the rest of this.
It's hard for me to say things like that too, but that book was, it was like he was trying to do a future post-apocalyptic speak, but it was impossible to read.
Yeah.
And then
Kurt Busiek's not a bad writer, but that was just he just phoned it in on that one, I think.
I met him on New Comic Book Day.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about his work on Marvels and Marvel X. And he basically said that the idea was created on like a phone call where they basically threw it together, and they just wanted to, they used the clout. I think it was Alex Ross uses Alex Ross's clout to
because
further that.
Now, actually, Marvel X wasn't too bad. I kind of like that. And Alex Ross's covers were the reason, and I'm sure why everyone bought that were for the covers. Reading it was not bad. But Marvel's was just something else. I don't know. It was a bad idea.
Okay.
I disagree with the idea that most of DC and Marvel is like coming off kind of like artificially PG rated and trying to be unoffensive.
Okay.
Like, I think the majority of the stuff is made by really creative people who are doing really creative things. But Marvel X and the most recent Marvel Zombies, and then Old Man Quill. It's 3 different examples of like a really horrible nihilistic story that was from Marvel that had no happy ending. Where now, weirdly, kind of years later, they're trying to give it a happy ending. You know, like the Wasteland is saved by the Wasteland Avengers recently. I don't know if you guys have seen that. The Old Man Wolverine universe gets a happy ending.
Yeah.
The most recent Marvel Zombies shows that a zombie has gained consciousness and is doing the idea that maybe this will have a happy ending. Moon Girl, or Moon Woman at this point in this post-apocalyptic future, sees the good in him and lets him, to her own death, go on and try to save the world. But yeah, Marvel is trying to now take some of their most upsetting books that had horrible endings.
Yeah.
And now give it a shiny paint.
Retcon and fix the things that they had wrong with it. I don't disagree with you in the aspect of, I mean, what he was saying in Frontiersman was that things are getting stale and bland. I do disagree with that to an extent because they're taking chances. I mean, Marvel and DC, they're not going to go away. This isn't like a knife in the heart or anything. They're going to adapt. But they need to listen to the fans more is basically what I'm trying to illustrate in that fact.
You guys read Superior Spider-Man's?
I didn't
he had
read
6 issues.
that.
where he went to
No.
San Francisco. He was San Francisco's Spider-Man for like 6 issues.
Okay.
And it was just amazing because Doc Ock's inner monologue is one of the funniest things ever. He's constantly, dogging everyone out. I'm so much smarter than everyone. It's so wonderful to read. And then in the very last issue, obviously Spencer wanted to use Doc Ock for this most recent story for Spider-Man. There's like, I'm going to bring Doc Ock back with this Sinister Sixes book.
Correct.
Ending he did. And the way that ended, it was like the most interesting thing they've ever done with the character. It was so much fun, and it's like Christoph Gage, who was the writer, was told by Marvel, like, you need to wrap that shit up, and he did. And it was really, really weird and jarring because suddenly it's the worst thing Marvel's put out in a while. Because suddenly it was almost like the writer was disappointed in what was happening, and it just
and that
ended
shows
so
that
quickly.
shows through the storytelling. Yeah.
And he goes, Dr. Octopus is like, I'm just going to go be Dr. Octopus again. And then the next time he shows up, he's kind of like portly. He no longer has the Peter Parker clone body. Yeah. So, yeah, like that right there is synergy gone wrong.
Okay.
Ignatius said, I hope they do a good job with the new Sabretooth miniseries. And I think he has like 3 or 4 at this point. So this would be a first, I think, if it was any good. Although I will say Sabretooth Open Season, I think it was called, had great covers. These awesome painted covers. I don't know if you saw that. I think it was like a 4-issue miniseries from some years back. Check out Open Season. I don't remember if the story is any good. I don't think I read the whole thing, but the covers were amazing on that. It's got like the first one of the issues has Sabretooth like attacking some big like Yeti like creature, and it's a painted cover. I don't remember the artist. I think it was Paolo, maybe.
Okay.
Anyways, awesome covers. Yeah. But
that's freaking awesome.
Sabretooth thing is really weird right now at Marvel. Do you guys know where Sabretooth is right now?
No.
So when the Krakoa experiment started, they get the island. One of the first things they did is they threw Sabretooth into a pit of nothingness where you just sit in stasis and blackness because he specifically is singled out as being too horrible to exist in this new world. Which is like, you start listing off the other supervillains they've allowed to run around that island. You're like, why Sabretooth? But like, what makes it weirder is the X Factor story before that saw Sabretooth go to hell and get like his humanity back, which had been taken from him in another story.
Uh-huh.
And he like was raising a little Siberian kitten with Omega Red in that book. It was one of the greatest stories ever. And I want to know where the tiger is, and like them putting him. It's the biggest like horrible thing that Krakoa did is stick Sabretooth in there after that last story. These people aren't reading their continuity in respect to Sabretooth and Dr. Octopus. These 2 people who are let to fall through the cracks just because traditionally they're horrible. No regard for their most current story, which kind of gave them a nicer spin.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get to that. I dropped X-Men once the Ten of Swords, X of Swords, whatever. Once that started, I was like, I'm not going to read all this right now. So
yeah, and I just, that's the thing that kind of bothers me is when things are ruined in continuity or characters aren't treated like how they should be in an aspect. Granted, they're doing new things, but I mean, Ignacio says that Sabretooth is the scapegoat for the Krakoan villains. And I don't know. I wish that I want to know what people think going forward. Like what's going to happen in the future. Like, are we going to keep going at this pace and independent books are going to become more popular and DC and Marvel are going to keep like messing around and shuffling things and trying to get their heads on right? They're not going to lose the fan base. No matter what you do, like like Disney's still popular, even though I'm not a big Disney person. I still have the Disney nostalgia, and that's how I relate to Marvel nostalgia. And like I love Star Wars, and I'm not gonna ever give up on those things because it's something that is part of my creative processes and the characters that I enjoy. And we can talk endlessly. Like I could crack open this Marvel Universe handbook and we could talk about random heroes that have been just around, and like, oh, I wish that this person would show up, and I wish that this is, and like, oh, I want this to happen. And fan fictions, I think, are the future in my opinion, because there's
Ignacio's got some fan fiction right there.
perfect. Good timing. I want Sabretooth to be reincarnated in baby form, okay? And he has to be raised by Wolverine, all right? And they both need to learn to avoid their killer instincts. It should be called Lone Wolvie and the Cub. Fan fictions, I think, are going to be what saves Marvel and DC. I have, where'd I put it? I have Raven and Beast Boy. They were specifically a fan fiction that got so popular that they just gave them free creative control, and it became this super popular series. Got where I put it? I thought I put it in. Okay, no, I don't know where it is, but it's Raven and Beast Girl. It's it like started online in like forums, and then they moved to social media, and then it gained so much of a following that DC's like, all right, do it, produce it, we're gonna pay you, like, create your story. I think that it's amazing that kind of thing can happen, and that's what I'm hopeful for in the future.
I'm less hopeful for that in that a company like Disney, I don't see them ever going to the fans and even really caring about what the fans think or have to say, or I'm just in general, I'm just a bit pessimistic. What,
it's not a hot take. I'm not sitting here going, "Oh,
it's Disney's just like, whatever. Here, eat this." That's what you get. We don't care what fan fiction you're writing. I will say, and it's not just them. It's a lot of properties in general. It's like, I will say, however, kind of the benchmark for fan fiction and how, not only in terms of sheer amount, but also in the fact that I think generally. They've kind of been open to it is Star Trek. I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan, and of course that's, that when it comes to fan fiction, I don't think there's any other property that has more than Star Trek.
Right.
But where they've been kind of missing out, because fan fiction has gone with Star Trek specifically, it's gone from just people writing their own Star Trek episodes to people spending all their time and energy on making their own shows and their own movies, and sometimes exceeding what they're doing with what Star Trek's doing with their own property. Like, if you saw any of the, I don't know, I didn't really watch Star Trek Discovery, but if you've watched some of that or any of the last movie, maybe not the J.J. Abrams movies, but there is stuff that, because of how easy it is now for people to access stuff, like really to be able to create special effects at a high level, you put in the time and you learn it, anyone can really do it. And there are fan films or videos that are better than anything recently that you would see on that Star Trek is putting out. It is on par with that. Star Wars as well. I know there's been some Star Wars fan fiction short films.
A lot
that
of them
were way better than any of the recent Star Wars.
A prime example of what you were talking about from the beginning there, though, because Star Wars was a very open property, and they had like all kinds of books and the extended universe and everything. And then as soon as Disney bought it, they put that corporate mandate down, and like none of that stuff counts. We're not publishing anymore. Like fan content and stuff like that. And that's kind of what you were talking about. Like, how are we going to have faith that these giant corporations like Marvel and DC are going to allow fans to really come in and create unique things. Whenever we see Disney, they kind of set the standard for that with Star Wars by just erasing all that history.
Yeah, I agree, but I think that the fans will still create the content. It just won't be either acknowledged
Well, it won't be
put out
sanctioned.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I've been in the woods with lightsabers and a camera myself.
There you go. Yeah. and
God knows. We probably all have.
I have not been in the woods, but I've definitely spent hours in my backyard, and I broke my lightsaber. Like I recently broke my lightsaber.
Oh no.
And Mandalorian, I forget the creator that they brought in. They brought in the nerdiest fanboy of Star Wars and gave him like a top spot in the creative process of Mandalorian. And look what happened.
Yeah.
It was great. Like
Dave.
Filoni.
Right? Yeah,
Dave Filoni.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Good.
Well, he got
good
his start on the animated one. That's where he really came into his own. But yeah, that was basically his fan fiction that drove all that. You know, that was his fan idea of like what he would do with Star Wars, and it became such a hit in the animated universe that they bumped him over to the Mandalorian when that came around, and that's where he's really made his name with the fans. But that's all it was. He was just a huge Star Wars fanboy growing up, and he brought all of his ideas to the table in the animated stuff first.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is I think that there is hope for that in the aspect of the fans can save those products.
I hope so. Like I don't know if you guys haven't seen it. You can see it. You can watch it on YouTube. It's called Shards of the Past. The Star Wars fan film, Shards of the Past. It's about Darth Vader, and that is something that Disney could literally pay this guy and put it on Disney Plus, and it looks as good as anything that they're doing. I mean, it's incredible the work that these people put in. Shards of the Past, it's called.
Oh, I'm gonna post the link in the chat, and then I'll put it in the description of the video in the bottom. No, I'm not messing around here.
Back to haunt you forever, Ignacio.
Another fan fiction thing I thought was Shards of the Past. No, absolutely mind blowing. My friend showed me this. I was never into the Warhammer 10K, 20K, whatever it is. You know, Warhammer, the little
40K
tabletop game.
Oh, that's what I'm coloring for my picture. Marnius Calgar, Warhammer 40K. Yeah, but keep going with your story.
Yeah, so I never really got into that, but there was a project someone made a few years ago called ASTARTES. I don't know how you pronounce it. ASTARTES or something. It's ASTARTES, and it's
ASTARTES?
a short film just made by a fan who clearly spent years putting this animation together, and it's absolutely incredible. And it's on YouTube as well. It's like a 10-15 minute Warhammer short animated film.
Yeah,
and
I see it.
It's dude, that thing is incredible. Absolutely. The action sequences in that blew my mind.
There's
it's a short watch. I recommend that.
So it doesn't even stop at comic books or movies. Like it is actually shifted into video games too. I'm not sure if anybody's watched the it's with Nathan Fillion. If you've ever played the Uncharted video games, Nathan Fillion does a oh wow. This thing is amazing. Sorry, I just found the ASTARTES thing.
Yeah.
ASTARTES are the name of the Space Marines, by the way. It's not ASTARTES, but it's
dude,
the name
that thing is incredible. I can't, and some fan just made that right for nothing, for free.
That inspires fear and all that here. ASTARTES.
Anyways, there's this Uncharted video game fan fiction. It's just a fan film, sorry. And it's 14 minutes long, and it's amazing. And yet, the people who are making the Uncharted film, they're using Mark Wahlberg and who's the Spider-Man? The newest Spider-Man?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. and they're getting so much pushback from fans, and they're having so many production issues. It was supposed to come out in 2019, even before like all this crap hit the fan, and they couldn't do it. But there's just so many, like,
The
people are
Nathan
producing
Fillion
things.
one you're saying, is that
Yes.
using game footage, or is that they got Nathan on a set?
Oh, it's Nathan Fillion. I'm gonna post the link to that too. Like, I'm gonna post all these links. Like, if I can promote fan fiction, and that's the purpose of this video, besides me like dicking around and reading the book.
It might be now, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that that's the future, and that's what I'm happy that you all jumped on here, because I'm tired. I'm fucking tired of sitting here and complaining about shit. I want to have solutions. I want to have a hopeful aspiration for the future, because I love this stuff. I love all of it. I love getting entrenched in these alternative universes and just getting immersed. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse. I don't care if it's like a kid film or an animated film. I loved it. I've watched it 5 times. Like, it is amazing. I want more. I want more creative content. I want more creative freedom for artists, and I want more fan fictions. I want the ability for people to show their creativity rather than just regurgitate the same stuff over and over. I'm not sure if you all share that same thing, but I got a little emotional.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, here's the Uncharted film. I'm going to post that in the chat too. There's so many tabs open. All right, here's the Nathan Fillion. I highly recommend. I'll post all these in the notes underneath with little subtitles and stuff.
You were talking about
Go ahead.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I worked on a fan film. It's the last one that came out that didn't have to abide by the new timing. So for a long time, you can make Star Trek content as long as long as you wanted to. You could do series if you wanted to. But then this one group of people, they kind of went too big with it, and it was right during when CBS was about to put out these new shows.
Galaxy Quest.
Yeah. New Galaxy Quest supposedly is coming down the line.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, that's no big deal. But one of the last ones that came out was one that I worked on. I got to be a Starfleet engineer for Star Trek: The First Frontier. And that's on YouTube now. It's the last one, though, that was a full-length film.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I'm gonna have to check that out. There is a great Star Trek fan film called Star Trek Axanar, and it is basically a mockumentary. It's a Star Trek documentary, so it's shot like they're interviewing, people in the Federation.
Yeah.
And they're talking about this battle, the Battle of Axanar, and it's like I think it's like an hour long, but shot like a documentary, like a Star Trek documentary. So you're like interviewing the captain of these ships that were part of this battle, and it was incredibly well done, very well written. I highly recommend that one, Axanar.
Yeah, those guys, they put out a lot of content. Like they're not even in the Star Trek world anymore. They've had to create their own world for their newest content. But it's good. It's really solid,
Did anybody ever watch Star Kid? No, I have not watched Orville. There's this other.
Orville's great.
I've heard good things, actually. I just never I never got into it, in the sense of like I was never, when it came out, I was still like working like late nights and stuff, so I never caught it on TV or anything. And that was
I got like real sick a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And so I was stuck on the couch for like 2 or 3 days, and so I watched like both seasons. What I will say about it is it takes time to get its footing. Like it.
Okay. Fair.
It's showrun by Seth MacFarlane, so there was kind of this expectation that it was supposed to be like a spoof comedy thing, like Galaxy Quest, the TV show or something.
Correct.
And so it does kind of start out structured like that, but about halfway through the first season, they really figure out like this is like an actual fan doing a Star Trek thing. This is not total goofball stuff. And so toward the end of the first season, they really find their footing, and the second season is actually quite top notch.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'll check it out. I just love the promotion of things that like you don't know, because we can sit here all day and talk about things that we love and things that we've seen. Mark is talking about, has there ever been a time where people haven't been crying for more artistic freedom? And when is there enough artistic or creative freedom? I mean, there isn't. You make your, but there, I think that people are making okay, cool. What I'm about to say is literally what Ignacio said verbatim. There are platforms. There is an ability for you to just make your own stuff. You don't have to complain anymore. You make your own thing. I sit here and complain about comic books. I'm making my own comic book. I don't have to play by those rules. I don't have to sit here and complain about paper quality or the pricing of the book. I'm going to set those things. I'm going to choose nice paper. I'm going to spend all this money, and I'm going to keep it reasonable. And it makes sense to start Kickstarters or Substacks, or like there's so many facets, and Drax shot something from his phone. It looked professional quality. You're able to do these things from home. Go ahead, Ryan.
Speaking to Mark, LeVar Burton. So Geordie LaForge is absolutely one of my favorite characters, but not my favorite. My favorite is and will always be Jean-Luc Picard. Number one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to address the creative freedom thing, like, yeah, people have always wanted more creative freedom.
Yep.
When you're talking about like major properties, they have to appeal to the largest demographic, right? To make it financially viable, to make something, it has to appeal to the largest possible demographic.
Correct.
If you go back to like the 60s and 70s and even in the 80s, the 80s is kind of where you hit this tipping point. But back then it was, we're going to take some experimentation, because all of the data we have is basically us analyzing and breaking it down. Once you get into like the late 80s, though, you run into the thing of like computers and algorithms started crunching all these numbers. And so now we're at this point where they're min-maxing, and they take like no creative liberties or freedoms or,
how
test
can
anything really, because they can run the whole thing through the scenario through a computer, and they can tell exactly what the outcome will be. And so they're min-maxing everything. That's why Star Wars Episode 7 was a remake of Episode 4, because they wanted, when they ran everything through the computer, how are we going to bring new fans on board but like make old fans happy? Well,
absolutely.
According to the data, it was to remake Episode 4, And so I think, we're seeing more content than ever, but most of the big name content is so restricted by what the data says is going to be successful, because we can't only have a $3 billion profit on this movie. It needs to be 20 billion, or else we're not going to be happy, And that's the unfortunate side. I think the projects that really capture fan attention are the ones that step outside of those molds. Like Episode 7 was okay, 8 and 9, they have all their problems. But look at Rogue One. That movie came out of nowhere, kind of surprised everybody by what they did with it, and it's a fan favorite.
Absolutely.
So I think that like the big name properties, whenever we talk about like creative freedom, it's like I wish they would take more chances and more risks with something like Star Wars, instead of staying so true to what it is just because the numbers say this is how we're going to make our money.
Yep.
I mean, that's successful. It. And the nostalgia factor, that's a tried and tested thing. It works. I mean, when I saw Episode 7, like everyone else that was a fan, you saw that trailer and you saw Han and Chewie, like that tugs at your heartstrings as a fan. You're like, oh, I'm definitely going to see that. But do they then just piled that nostalgia on at the expense of a good story, I think. And that's problematic. That's why Rogue One had nothing of that sort, really, except at the end, which was phenomenal. That was incredibly well done, because it wasn't just that was the end of Rogue One was an instance where they used that, but in a very clever way, in that, like,
correct.
Here is
and no one saw that coming. Like, this goes right into A New Hope. Like, that's how that ends, and it's like that was incredibly an incredible example of how you can use that nostalgia to
because it was
create a
like
good story.
so little, so little nostalgia. It was almost like an espresso shot in your coffee. Like
Yeah.
I'm already into this movie. It's already Star Wars, and then they just give you that little shot of nostalgia
Yeah,
at the
and
end.
right
just
at the end too.
oh,
That was key. Putting it right at the
yeah.
end, it was just like, oh my god, that was perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah, whereas like episode 7, I feel like that was the coffee, and like the newness of it all was the espresso shot, and it just, I don't know, I wanted something more new out of all of it, and I thought Rogue One really hit that balance a lot better.
Besides it just looking better and having better graphics.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, that
so
too. Yeah.
It makes episode 6 so funny though. Like the beginning, it already started with 2 robots talking to each other, and the gag is you can only understand one, right? So
Yeah,
it's genuinely a funny beginning, right? And then it rolls into your first serious character who you're meeting, and it's Princess Leia. And like, if you've seen the other movie, like her looking at Darth Vader in the face and going, "I don't know what you're talking about," is hilarious.
I mean, episode 1 has to have the most awkward beginning of any movie, which is like, this is Star Wars. It's not necessarily for kids, but you want to make this for children as well. That's And what is episode 1 open with? 2 Jedi's talking about trade negotiations. Nobody gives a shit about that.
They literally have a cup of tea.
Totally agree. So yeah, this video was supposed to be 30 minutes of me reading a book and then talking about frontiersmen and what it's created in the what it's talking about, where the industry is. And then it turned into an extra hour of us talking about what we love and the cool things about things. And I think that this is a step in the right direction. It's no longer us sitting here complaining. This is what will fix it. This is at least an option. Like, we can praise the things that are good. We can talk about the fan fictions and the progression of certain things, and we can have nostalgia. We can have all those things. And if not, you can just create your own, and you can get a group of people together. I mean, we have so many connections now. I mean, we've had like 3 artists that have shown up in the chat. We have like people. I've been in the film industry since I was 10 years old, so like I have connections. If anybody wants to make something, we make it. It's not that hard to do. You don't need a big production company or a big title. It doesn't need to be. See, dude, he's been literally trying to troll me the entire time. I've been praising Blue Painter's tape for the past 23 minutes. Thank you. And I was just supposed to be here to clown around, and it got serious in the aspect of that's I was going back and forth on whether I wanted to even publish this video, but the purpose of my channel is to have parody and have it be from a loving perspective and from a fan's perspective and from an optimistic aspirations for the future. So I think that kind of okay. We need
So the
more
beginning
new
of
action
this
and
going
less no
into
reaction.
serious discussion, I think, is on brand.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Just because of, I don't know. I like having things random, and I like having things. I want to catch people off guard, but then I also want people to listen and understand that there is. You don't have to be overcritical of everything. You can love things for what it is, and if you don't love things, you have the ability to create something that you love. And I think that's kind of cool in the aspect of where our community is, at least in the comic book creating community. But there's so much overlap between actual multimedias, because we all have like videos, and we all have things that we post online. We have things that we guest appear on. We all have opinions, and those opinions can be turned into something new and refreshing. And like I said, like if you don't like what you see, make your own. Just start from scratch, reach out to people. Like, it just takes an Instagram message for any of us to get these artists and writers and creators on our channels and to have these conversations. Like, it's that simple. We've all done it. And what's up, Nick? It's refreshing. It's refreshing to have people talking rather than complaining and actually providing solutions. So I thank all three of you for coming on. I didn't invite anybody. Like, this is a whim. This is I'm so caught off guard, and you don't see me caught off guard very often, except for when everybody cuts me off on Mark's channel when I'm trying to tell a damn story, and they just distract the crap out of me. I have a very what's it called? Short attention span. I'm like a goldfish. I get distracted by little things.
Well, to speak on what you were just saying, I mean, that's kind of why I started my own YouTube channel, because I watched DJ Links and I was like, oh, this guy sucks. I can do better than that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I see Burke Family. I'm like, I could create a community better than that. Are you kidding me?
Shout out to DJ Links. Honestly, he is one of the reasons why I started my own YouTube channel. Not because he sucks, but because I thought he was great, and I was like, I'd like to try something like that.
Like, I could at least do that.
Yeah, I can at least show comic books to the kids.
Right.
Yeah, check out what I picked up today. I've done this my entire life. Okay, fair enough, Mark.
Oh, I was going to mention something about that, Mark. I think for anyone watching this, for the sake of all future collectors, treat your comic books as if they were your nipples and only use blue painter's tape.
Thank you. That is a great message. And with that, I would like to close this out. I only put aside 30 minutes. And thanks again. Is there anything that anybody wants to share in conclusion?
No, I mean, this has been a really great kind of impromptu discussion, I think.
Yeah.
I was not expecting this either. Like I said, my brother came over last night and we were up. I took a kind of a nap, but we were up till like 7 a.m, man. And
so
and then I woke up a few hours later and I see you with tape on your nipples and I'm like, yeah, I think I should hop on there.
Thank you very much. And
not quite sober, but that's okay.
Fair enough. Hey, you asked me way early in the chat how high I was, and I'm not going to confirm anything.
Well, this discussion and coffee has sobered me right up. So
there we go. Yeah, it's been a real talk in that aspect, and just awesome. Ryan, what do you want to say in conclusion?
I mean, I had a blast here. This was great. I was just sitting here on my computer, and a notification popped up, and I was like, "Hey, let's see what's going on." And then I ended up here. It's been a great discussion, and I put out my daily writing tip.
Oh, heck yeah!
Went up at a little over an hour ago now, and it actually kind of pertains to this because it's about how you have a unique voice. So don't count yourself out just because you think your idea has already been done. And so I think that kind of plays to what we were talking about. Like, take things and remix them. That's the best way to come up with a great idea because your voice is going to be unique within that sphere. So. Check that out. It's on Instagram, Twitter, if you're over there. So you can see that pretty much anywhere. Cool, but this was a blast, unexpected, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was not supposed to be serious at all. The what I've learned from Zoolander and kind of going off of your what you just said is duplicate and elaborate. Right before they go on for the catwalk, you got to duplicate, you got to elaborate. Ideas are cheap. Ideas are really, really cheap. There is when a comic book gets optioned, they're just buying the idea.
Yeah,
it's and they pay $50,000 for it, and then they can turn that and make millions. It's a dime in the bucket,
or do nothing at all, which is more often the case.
And yet the collector market will still freak out about it regardless. But there's something that you could change in that aspect as well. And if you read the dang books, if you take the time, have a silent sustained reading and just read a book. I would, and then I'd actually, based on what has happened here, I kind of want to at least do this one more time where we actually get some people together and have like an actual conversation, because I think it needs to be done. But at the same time, there's so much content out there. You don't have to watch my content. You don't like I don't want to be part of the problem in the aspect of I'm going to keep like 6 hours of your time rambling on about stuff. Just thank you. He's been firing shots at me the entire time. I have to take
that's one thing I absolutely love about this community, but also like was not expecting is like, I figure, I'm gonna do a video today, maybe do a live stream. We'll go maybe 30 minutes, and then like 2 hours later, it's like, because just keep talking and talking. It's just like,
Who would have thought comic book fans are full of opinions?
Yeah, who knew? I did want to mention I do have something cool today, probably sometime this afternoon or evening. Okay. I don't know. Keep an eye out for it. I'm going to be doing a live unboxing with Jean Mallow. I bought one of his Boîte Mystère, his French Canadian mystery boxes.
Okay.
And he'll be hopping on with me, and I'm going to open up the box. And the cool thing about this is one of the grand prizes, which I'm crossing my fingers for, is a Tomb of Dracula #1. So hopefully I'll get another Tomb of Dracula #1. Got to tune in to find out.
All right, cool. A little suspense. Relaxing. You have anything to say, brother?
Oh, no. Thanks for having me on. I like coming on to your weird Saturday shows.
Yeah, what I do is different, and I'm always going to keep it different, and I'm going to be as genuine as I can, and I'm going to if I see a problem, I'm going to call it out, but if you see me calling a problem out, I'm always going to provide a solution, because there needs to be more solutions out there. So thanks again for joining. I'm going to post a bunch of links in the chat in this. Like I said, I wasn't considering even doing this, but I think it's awesome. Thank you very much. And we'll shout out to the sponsors I don't have. Make sure you do a bunch of tasks and click a bunch of buttons and make me popular.